What is good? We're back. We got the 2025 breakout players, big year loading. Buy them everywhere before they break out players today for your pleasure. Got my man Chev over there. What's good, man?
You know me, brother. Any day on this side of dirt's a good one.
That's right, man. So we're going to go through a couple players each. We're going to talk about who we like to maybe have the biggest breakout they've ever seen, and maybe give you a little bit of some trades that we've seen recently in the database, give you an idea of their value, talk about their ADP a little bit. So we got a bunch of information to throw at you, and some guys that we're liking right now to see a nice little bump up and breakout in 2025. So Chev, why don't you kick us off? Tell us one of your favorites here in June of 2025.
It's hard to hide. I mean, if you watched our wide receiver ranking episode, it becomes ridiculously apparent that I am getting unrealistic in my expectations for Jameson Williams. So, I mean, he breaks out. He's a full-time player for the first time last year. He's 38th overall in the league in routes run, but that turns into 14 points a game. He goes over 1,000 yards on 90 targets. In terms of his explosive ability, he was at 7.45 yards per reception after the catch. Like yards after catch per reception, 7.45 yards. That was tied for second with A.J. Brown in the entire NFL. So all of these, like he's basically a full-time role, but still not getting full-time usage, and he gave you 14 points a game. Then you have the Lions offensive coordinator talking about how big of a year Jameson Williams could have. So I'm buying. Like, I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. He's going into, exercise his fifth-year option. So he's basically going into a contract year because, he's going to get paid $20-some-odd million or whatever that fifth-year option is. So, but this is basically a contract year for him where he could ball out and become, and he either gets $25 to $30 million a year from the Lions, or he goes somewhere else and he becomes a primary option. And at 24 years old, I'm buying that I'm getting ahead of it now because I feel like his price could be unrealistic very shortly.
Yeah, I like that. We have him at 712 right now in the ADP. He was down 7 spots since our last ADP check-in, which this was around the first one post-draft. So some of those rookies came up and pushed JMO down. Mm-hmm. But, people might not be as interested as JMO right now. He's not the hottest name in them streets, but still pretty strong value. What kind of a market does JMO have right now? Are you seeing out there in the Dynasty Daddy streets?
It's all over the place. Some of the things that I would be, if these are real, which some of these I have to question, but we're looking at getting Jameson Williams for Javonte Williams and a 2026 second round pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Sign me up.
And people listening out there, these are real trades in the real database that have took place on Sleeper over the last X amount of days. So we do try to sort through them and find the more realistic ones that make sense in a value standpoint. But these are ones that happened, and I like to look at a little higher and a little lower, right?
Yeah. You got Isaiah Pacheco straight up for Jameson Williams. You got this one. This one interested me a bit. I was saving this for the show, but JMO for Terry McLaurin at 2026 round 4.
Yeah.
You get a little bit younger, you're giving up, the proven veteran. I believe Terry was around 16 points a game, if I'm not mistaken. JMO comes in at 14, but you're getting a whole lot younger as Terry is going to be 30 this year, I believe. So, yeah, you can, if I'm right, these prices are going to seem, you're going to be in the comments screaming that, oh, this isn't real. I think he could go 17, 18 points a game, somewhere in that range with just an uptick in usage just a bit. Or if the route participation increases. He was at basically 80% last year, 442 routes run. So yeah, I think that could go way up.
we're seeing Terry at 706, Jameson Williams at 712, wide receiver 28, wide receiver 33. That's a sort of trade. Like if you're not a hardcore competitor, you're middling, or you're a little bit more in the rebuild phase. That's a good tier down to make. Get off the older guy. Terry's probably going to outscore Jameson this year, but you're not going to recoup that age gap, right? So when you're in that 100%. Position, that's not a terrible move to make. So I like the idea of Jameson Williams, and I think Jameson Williams is a good cautionary tale of the historical year kind of committee that was out after Jameson Williams after year one. Instead of applying context to things, they just wanted to blanket it. And well, nobody's ever done this after this start, and no rookies ever. And it's like, well, you got to contextualize what was happening with Jameson Williams, and you saw flashes of it, and now you saw a whole year from Jameson Williams, and he had to mature as a man too, right? That's part of it, right? He had to figure some things out, and seems like he's there. The coaching staff is very in on him. I don't know if they'll be able to afford him. We shall see. It depends on how good this year is, right? Right. If you're right, I don't know if the Lions will be able to afford him. Also, we have a big switch there in who's calling plays and what, and we talk about this all the time on this show. Like the next guy might be Jameson Williams' number one fan, right? He might be, and Jameson was already doing his thing, but he might be like, oh, this guy's the guy that I really like scheming it to, right? And that's just that's kind of how things shift. It's not that AS St. Brown's suddenly bad or Laporta's suddenly bad, but it could just be a little paradigm shift of all of a sudden Jameson's a little bit more of the focal point of that offense. But that's a bad man. And we've seen it in glimpses. And if we could get just a little bit more target share going that way, I think this is an easy move up for Jameson Williams and ADP, and a fantastic start in your lineup every week.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that sticks out to me is what you mentioned, like him growing up. So if you followed that whole deal, I've been a big Jameson Williams believer. Like I was like, okay, this guy is going to be, he has a different level of game speed, regardless of whatever the 40 says. Like he has a different level of game speed. So I'm interested in what this turns out into the next level. So you mentioned him, figuring it out and growing up. And I go back to the moment where I realized he started to get it. And it was a play where he didn't get the ball. It wasn't a target or anything. He's just downfield, blocking his ass off for somebody, like for DeAndre Swift or whoever.
It was for a run.
Yeah, it was a run. He was
way downfield. Run. Yeah.
Yes. And Dan Campbell highlighted that, and it was like, oh, okay. So he's bought into what they're preaching now. So this is going to lead to more opportunities. And then we have this year's breakout where they took some targets away from Sam Laporta. He goes from 120 targets to about 90 targets or whatever it was. And Amon-Ra's targets dipped down just a little bit. So those opportunities are there. And I want to be early to this party because, again, he has a different level of game speed than just about any other receiver on the football field. Yeah.
No, I love it. We were big proponents of keep buying the dip, and now the dip is stabilized, and now we have to make the decision: are we going to go even higher? And I believe that we can go a few rounds higher and get even more points per game out of Jameson Williams, depending on how this system gets run. All right.
We'll be back with more FFD after a short commercial break. If you're as serious as we are about Dynasty, you got to be playing on FFPC. They are now the proud home of over 2,000 Dynasty leagues, and not a single league has ever folded. Incredible. Drafts are kicking off every day, so go over to myffpc.com and take your game to the next level. New users get $25 off their first league using code FFD. Holler at your boys.
I'm going to go my first guy. I'm going Kenneth Walker III, man. And just like J-Mo's been our guy for a while, Kenny's been my guy for a while. Loved him since he came out. Right now he's 604 in our ADP, RB 18. Through 11 games last year, averaged 16.5 points per game. He had 153 attempts last year, 573 yards in those 11 games, 7 TDs, 1 fumble. But the big thing is 51 targets, 46 receptions, and 299 more yards, I believe, from the reception standpoint, right? His yards per contact after attempt, and you got to use a lot of attempt numbers, are 2.65, which was 14th. His missed tackles forced per attempt, number 1 in the league, right? Obviously didn't play all the games, but and then what we have here is a fundamental shift in the system of how they're going to run it, right? They want more balance, certainly in this offense. The new head coach, seem to be a little displeased with how pass happy they may have gotten. Now you did switch quarterbacks, but I see that as mostly lateral, right? Not a crazy huge difference.
100%.
In that part of things. If we can get the O-line to stay healthy here, we've seen Kenny just be a shining light in this offense. And now I think what they want to do is bring more balance in the run game. And you've heard Kubiak in February and March talking about how much he really wants K9 to be involved and how they're really going to put a lot on him and be in the passing game. We just saw Alvin Kamara have a nice little resurgence last year. Not that he was bad or anything, but Kamara looked great with Kubiak down there in New Orleans, right? And so, this is going to be a bit more of a zone concept run scheme, right? Last year we saw in zone concept success rate, we saw Kenny at 42%. We saw Sharps at 37.9%, right? So Kenny a little better in the zone scheme, but he also said, hey, we got to work with some of what Kenny does. We're going to do what we do, but we're also going to feature what Kenny can do. And we're going to throw it to the back a lot. We're going to get the ball in our playmakers' hands, right? So the 51 targets, 46 receptions, I highlighted that because a lot of people threw shade at Kenny Walker not being able to be a pass-catching running back. And I always push back on that with the high-level guys that are that good and that focused and that good of an athlete of saying, let's contextualize why, when we go back to Michigan State days, it's not like there was some other back they were throwing it to, right? They just weren't throwing it to the running back, right?
Right.
So Kenny, I think, has at least removed that myth, busted it from, where he could be. And he can be in the high level of PPR floors for pass catching. So couple that with how good he is. Now, the biggest thing is just staying on the field. If Kenny stays on the field, this is a top 5 to 8 points per game running back, in my opinion. So that's why I'm buying here. If we could stay on the field, I like the new Kubiak concept and how they're going to run it. And they're going to be more balanced and probably a little more based on the run, get the ball and focus on Kenny a little bit more. Sharp's not terribly expensive, but Damian Martinez is really cheap, right? So, and it's I like Sharps, no shade on Sharps at all, but I just think Kenny, when you watch the two, they just operate very differently and visually what it looks like, right? And Kenny's is more eye popping and wow, where I'm not going to call Sharps a plotter, but he just gets it done in a different manner and style, right?
Yeah,
and I think Kenny can hit those home runs for you, and so Kenny. Big breakout for me. And real quick on the market side of things, we got to trade on Monty and Shakir for Kenny Walker. We have DK and 208 for Kenny Walker and Mooney. That's super flex tight end premium. We got 111 for Kenny. We got 108 for Kenny. We have Matthew Golden and Jarquez Hunter for Kenny, right?
I love that.
And then here was one involving James Cook. We had Coker, James Cook, and a fourth for Godwin and Kenny. So market not terrible on Kenny, right? From where I think he can go, I would be down with just about any one of those trades on the Kenny side, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like there's no question about that. Like you're giving up, you give up the 108. That could potentially be, Tyler Warren. That could be. It could be. RJ Harvey scooting up there. Mm-hmm. You're hoping for the points per game production from RJ Harvey that Kenneth Walker can give you if he's in your lineup, on a week in, week out basis. 11 games, 16.5 points a game. I mean, he's a stud. And to your point about the stylistic difference, Kenny's got a gear and an agility and an explosiveness that reminds you of all of the elite backs of yesteryear. Mm-hmm. Zach Charbonnet has the ability, like he has got some long speed but there's just not that, it doesn't pop off the film. Like it's just, you look up and it's like, oh man, he gave you, 16, 17 points. Whereas Kenny's going to be like, there's going to be a one point in the game where you just stand up out of your chair and you're like, holy shit, did you see what he just did? Yeah. Again, example given, Detroit Lions, Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
He made 3 or 4 plays there where you're just like, man, this guy's got to be one of the best backs in the NFL. Like this, right. What is this?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that call, man. And, again, as far as our ADP goes, I mean, I don't know. Did you tell us?
He's at 604 RB 18.
Yeah. I mean, that's, if he's playing, if you could assume not even 17, if he plays 15 games, I feel like he beats that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's 609 to 604. So RJ Harvey 609, Kenny Walker 604.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson one spot ahead of him 603, Christian McCaffrey 602, Zay Flowers 606, Ibuka 607. So a bunch of Devonta Smith 601, bunch of guys there kind of around him. Those are kind of all the guys around him in that ADP range. So all right. Who you got as your next big year loading breakout star of 2025?
Let's start with the running back position, and I'm going to go with Chuba Hubbard. So I don't feel like there's enough respect on Chuba Hubbard's name based on the information that we have. Is there backfield competition for a guy who handled 295 opportunities last year in 15 games? Is there any backfield competition for him that you're worried about going into 2025?
I wouldn't say I like the other player in the backfield, but I don't think it's going to be a competition for taking a large chunk of snaps from him.
Right. And that's Dave Canales' thing. We saw him volume Rachaad White to an RB4 overall finish because he uses one guy, and that's what he does. I mean, Chuba last year handled 80% of the carries inside the 5. I mean, we're talking about, the Carolina Panthers offensive line was, I believe, seventh in run rate. Seventh among run block rating is what I was trying to say. Seventh in run block rating. I mean, average of career high 4.8 yards a carry. That signing of Robert Hunt, the guard, paid off immediately. Chuba Hubbard averaged 4.8 yards a carry. Like I said, Canales has a history of just using one bell cow. I mean, only 40% of his runs were stuffed. That's the sixth least amount in the league. He is 10th in missed tackles forced, and then 6th in yards after contact with 676. And he's going at the RB21. He's at the 705. He's going behind Jordan Addison, going behind Derrick Henry, which if you're a win now team, of course you prefer Derrick Henry because that's 19 points a game or whatever. But if you don't want to spend the money on a 30 or spend the capital on a 30-year-old running back, you can get Chuba Hubbard, who's at 16 points a game, which was 13th amongst running backs last year. And that was including the beginning of the season where that offense was completely broken and dysfunctional. So we saw that offense trend in the right direction towards the end of the season. If Bryce takes that step forward, you're getting a bell cow running back in a middling to good offense with better weapons than they've ever had. So I think RB21 in our ADP, I think he smashes that. I mean, he was 13th in points per game. So like I said, I think he smashes that, and I want to get ahead of that.
Yeah, I think there's room for Chuba to not only repeat but gain a little bit more and gain a little bit of respect. They paid him, they gave him some money to kind of stick around there as well. So I like the idea of Chuba, man. He's really the guy that when you're in a startup draft and you want a running back and you've kind of almost ventured a little into no man's land. He's the blinking light that's always staring at you going, hey, here's a guy that you could draft right now from the running back position that could really give you a huge boost to your lineup. Stability, right? With more upside, I think, even than we saw last year.
Yeah. I mean, this happened in real, this happened to me earlier today. I was just on my way to the cement aisle, just minding my own business in my Lowe's, and I was on the clock. I was about to be on the clock, and right before the 7th pick of the 7th round, I have 7-8. I'm like, please don't draft Chuba. Don't draft Chuba. I got a wheelbarrow full of cement bricks, and I'm ready to go. And this motherfucker drafted Chuba right ahead of me, and I fell to my knees in the middle of a Lowe's, and they didn't understand what was going on. And I was like, don't worry about it. I'll put all this back. So.
Yeah. I like it. In on the Chuba. I can't really disagree. I like it. I like the Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah. Before we get out, just a couple trades.
Yeah.
Chuba, start 10, full PPR, 0.5 tight end premium. Chuba goes for the 205 and a 2026 4th. I would buy Chuba for that all day long. Chuba straight up for the 201. I'm buying Chuba. This one's a little bit tougher, but I think I would still go Chuba. I would go James Cook for Cooper Kupp and Chuba Hubbard. Start 11. But I'd still be on the Chuba side.
That's unfair for me because I think I'm lower on Cook. I might still take Cook just because I feel like name cachet. I might be able to upgrade to something different, but I could smell you.
Well, it changes. If he gets an extension, it changes.
Cook,
right? Yeah.
But
the scary part again is the 32 rushing touchdowns for Buffalo as a team, and Cook having 16 of those feels like a screaming regression candidate, and they're not throwing him the ball. So, you could end up with egg on your face if you see what I'm saying. Like that's the only part for me. I just feel like Chuba's safer.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's we've talked about it a few times in the last couple episodes of Cook just being down in some statistics that you don't really love him to be in, and really up in the TDs. And now if the receptions come up and the TDs go down a little bit, we're probably fine, right? A good player, but it just seems like there's some math that's not quite mathing for me for Cook either. And maybe him going somewhere else could be better. Now it could be worse, but it could be a little bit more of a balanced out attack of or balanced out usage, right? Not skewed one way or the other year to year. So,
right.
All right. I'd say this is probably I love Caleb, or I love Kenny, but this is I wanted to get on here, and I know we kind of talked about this at one point. I want to pound the table for this guy. This is for this campaign through here, and some people are going to love it, and some people are going to hate it. But I'm going Caleb Williams here as a big breakout. Obviously, he's the number one draft pick, so it's not anything crazy, right? It's not like, oh, where'd this guy come from? But I think because of what happened with Jaden Daniels last year and the Commanders story, and the Bears just kind of bears and doing what they do, there were just two different trajectories going in two different ways. And Jaden Daniels is really easy to root for a lot of people, and Caleb Williams was a lot of ways to find reasons to hate on him, right? But Caleb and the Chicago Bears seemingly have potentially turned a corner here, and from everything that you can read from the outside looking in, culture just seems to have had shifted a little bit here, right? And that's what kind of had to happen. Yes. And that's what has me the most excited about Caleb Williams. And then seeing him, listen to Ben Johnson speak about him. And, some people were like, well, is he going to work in Ben Johnson's offense? And Ben Johnson is he doesn't have a copy and paste offense. What he's talking about is taking all the good things that Caleb does and Caleb is comfortable with and building around that. And so in the offseason, we know that they added Thuney and Jonah Jackson, but they also signed Drew Dalman, who's a center, that's kind of the catcher, right, for the pitcher. Dalman and him can now set up. He can move the line around, get Caleb set up where he needs to be, Kelsey to Hurts. That kind of, the center is a very important thing for Jeff Saturday to Peyton Manning, right? That center is a big deal for a franchise quarterback, right? And this line being good is obviously something that we've been wanting for a little while, and they've been trying to do here and there in Chicago. And TBD if they've got it right here, but I like it. They've added Case Keenum, right? Which you could say, wow, whatever that is. But last year there was no veterans on the staff. In the quarterback room, right? What this allows them to do now is kind of circumvent some rules, and now you can take Case Keenum as a teammate and use him as a coach, right? Yes. So now you can put another battery in the back of Caleb Williams, but last year they were saying that Caleb was watching film by him fucking self. Like, that's wild. That's what you got your rookie doing. And that right there could tell you the difference between what it was like in Washington, who just did this, right? They got rid of the owners or something happened, but forever Washington was just like hopeless, right? And now we saw the culture kind of shift around, and it happened really fast. Now we'll see what happens year two. Maybe it's the same. Maybe it's a little bit of a slump.
I mean, just to your point, I mean, Caleb only had like a 2.2% turnover worthy throw rate, and they were just letting him air it out with no direction, apparently.
Right.
20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I think he led the league in air yards amongst all quarterbacks, not just rookies. So he was functioning, and still he was 297 yards away. This is how shitty the Bears franchise is with quarterbacks. He was 297 yards away from breaking the single season passing record. And, for the Bears all time, not the rookie record, but all time. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about him in the, hey, he has tendencies that look like Patrick Mahomes off schedule. his arm, the arm velocity is like Aaron Rodgers. Like, we're talking about him in terms of, we use the G word, generational, but that's quite literally what he was purported to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right.
So, I love everything that you laid out for Caleb Williams. I'm still really bullish. I don't think that it's correct. I think it was an overcorrection to start putting guys like Drake May and Bo Nix over him. But it's hard not to live in the moment when you see guys having success and you see one guy's team just kind of floundering. But this team won 4 of its first 6 games before losing on a fucking Hail Mary.
Right.
So,
right.
Like, I think that we're going to be looking at Caleb as a bona fide first round pick come 2026.
Want more access to the FFD without leaving YouTube? Sign up for a YouTube membership and get access to all the perks of a Patreon membership with ADP, Dynasty Rankings, our rookie draft kit, and extra shows every week, all through Discord. Hope to see you there.
I agree with you. He's 209 right now in the ADP, so kind of back half of the second round. And to me, I love that. I love being able to pair him up or him be my first quarterback. A lot of the times he would have to be your second because you're probably taking a quarterback in those, in the slots where you maybe have taken him, but you could trade back and still get Caleb Williams. I wouldn't mind doing that if I had one of those higher end first round picks. You trade back and deeper into the first, and then I come back around at 209 and grab myself Caleb Williams. So I like that. And then, of course, we know what they added in the draft. They added Loveland. They added Burden. You have DJ Moore there, and you have Cole Kmet there, right? So you can even sustain an injury or two and still have plenty of weapons to go around here. Like you said, 3,500 yards is his rookie season, 20 TDs, 6 interceptions, 500 and some odd attempts, right? So, I know all those things that I laid out seem like, oh, what is this fantasy guy talking? And it's like, nah, these are the important things to me of what could build the bedrock of the foundation for a franchise quarterback, right? And it's the things that were kind of missing year one. They didn't make it super easy on him. And there's a lot of things where you look back on it and you go, that's crazy that was happening.
Exactly.
So super locked in. Him and Ben seem to be vibing, having a good run there. We'll see. We'll see what the vibe check is with DJ Moore and him last year. What did seem a little odd, but they got Luther and they got Roma Dunze, right? And they got Antoine Randall, who both of us I know really like as the wide receiver coach coming over. So a lot of parts and pieces that I really like. Can Ben Johnson be a head coach? I don't know, but I think what Ben Johnson can do is at least get Caleb going in the right direction. So Caleb Johnson, pound the table, my guy, breakout, big year loading, whatever you want to say. So here's a couple of trades here. You mentioned it. Nix for Williams straight up. May for Williams straight up. Those are trades that's happened recently. Penix and a first for Williams. The 104 and the 203 for Caleb Williams. Kyler Murray and a 26 second for Caleb in 109. That's a layup for me.
Easy.
That one might be, no way. But then JSN and a 26-4 for Caleb. Geno and St. Brown for Caleb and Devontae Adams. That's, that could be a little spicy for some people. Let's see here. Travis Hunter and a 26-2 for Caleb. So there's some options. There was also some big boy trades in there where it was like, a first and Caleb for Joe Burrow, a high first and Caleb for Lamar Jackson. Now, I don't know that I necessarily want to do that per se, but a lot of those other trades I'd be very interested in doing for Caleb Williams. And he's definitely the guy that I'm going and heat checking every league that I don't have him in to see where the price tag may lie on Caleb. Cause I really do think that we're going to see quite a different Caleb Williams, and not that we won't see some pains here and there. We should. This is he was a rookie who started all the games. So Caleb Williams, baby.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be all smooth, just smooth sailing from here on out. It's just supposed to be better than 68 sacks, better than them fumbling the bag in several game-winning situations. That's what we're alluding to. And if those things improve with the weapon improvement, they're going to win more games. He's going to have more statistical success. We could be looking at a 4,530 season looking back on this very easily.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Who's your last guy here, Chev?
Oh, Big Tuck, Freight Train Tuck, Tucker Kraft. Yeah, Tucker Kraft. Like that, to me, I didn't realize it, but I was a Tucker Kraft denier because I was all in on the athletic profile of Luke Musgrave coming in. I mean, 6'6", 250 pounds, hit like 21 miles an hour on the GPS coming out. And, I was bought in on that. We were all clamoring about, who's going to be, there's someone that needs to take a step forward as a pass catcher. Well, nobody's talking about it, but it was Tucker Kraft. So unlimited opportunity. So we're talking 65 targets. So there's a discrepancy between player profiler stats and what's on fantasy points data. So I'll go with fantasy points data. 65 targets, 50 receptions, 707 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So he was 7th among tight ends in yards, but 21st in targets. He was 2nd in yards per target among tight ends with at least 50 targets behind only George Kittle. He was 2nd in yards per reception with 14 yards reception behind only George Kittle. That's among tight ends with at least 50 targets. And then he led in yards after the catch per reception at 9.38 yards after the catch per reception. George Kittle was 2nd at 6.71. Now, why do I keep bringing up George Kittle? Because Matt LaFleur, at the end of the season, one of the reporters asked him, do you think Tucker Kraft's role could grow into a Travis Kelce, George Kittle style role? And he said, absolutely. He's a force. When we get the ball into his hands, he makes things happen. So the one thing that's been kind of, echoed amongst everyone that's a Packers fan from Josh Jacobs was that they needed a true number one. Well, you don't always have to have a true number one if you have a difference maker at tight end. And all those things that I pointed out to you point to me, allude to me that Tucker Kraft is a difference maker at the position.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. 65 targets, 50 catches, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, if he takes any sort of step forward, we're looking at a 1,000-yard receiver at tight end. And he's going at 9'11" in the ADP. So I can't really make sense of it. If you weren't paying close enough attention, if you didn't have Tucker Kraft on some of your teams, you don't really, it's not a name that's hot in these streets. Right now, he's at the 9'11", I believe, in our ADP.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, you're looking at a guy who's he could be a walking tight end one for, in the 10th round of your drafts. So he's going around Brian Robinson. He's going around Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Downs, and any sort of tight end premium. This is a cheat. You're adding essentially what could turn into a first round value, which is what I think they're going to do in Green Bay. They're going to feature him more. So they're trying to figure out the receiver situation. They took Matthew Golden. They're going to get more targets for Tucker Kraft. And so that's why I'm predicting him to break out this year.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be more out on Kraft because I thought he was going to have a little bit more respect on his name, I guess, for lack of a better term, and be a little higher up in the ADP. But where he still is right now and being drafted in tight end premium drafts, 9-11, man, that's a tight end 10. That's a very palatable spot for me to be drafting him. I do have concerns he didn't have to fight with Musgrave a whole lot last year, missed a lot of time. We'll see with both of them back in the fold. Now you add Golden into this rotation. Is it going to be good enough to be more than an awesome best ball play? And when you start him, can you start him every week? That's really my only concern. But at this point, it's so palatable and the price is so good that I thought, like I said, I was going to be more like, oh yeah, I'm probably selling Kraft. But I'm still very much in. I like drafting him there. I like taking the chance because, like you said, all those things you're pointing to, great markers, right? Those are the things that you want, indicators that he could be an absolute monster. I do worry just about where that target distribution goes and what happens if Musgrave gets back on there, has the little bit better draft capital Musgrave does. And we just, hadn't seen him super duper healthy throughout yet. So we'll kind of see. And maybe that means more 12 if both of them are healthy and a Golden and a Reed, I don't know, but TBD. I think we could see a better version of Jordan Love as long as he can stay healthy. Cause it just was last year. It was injury after injury after injury for him starting basically week 1, I think that would really help kind of this move forward, and just one more year with Jordan Love in this offense. So I wanted to come in hating it when you brought him up, and then I was like, man, dude, super palatable price tag for Kraft, and so I'm still in.
Oh yeah, I mean, just to point out some of the trades that are going down. I got Tucker Kraft straight up for the 206. I mean, that to me, give me in a tight end premium, give me Tucker Kraft. You got Mason Taylor, 0.75 tight end premium, start 10. Ty Felton and Mason Taylor for Tucker Kraft. I'm on the Tucker Kraft side there. Like that makes way too much sense to me. David Njoku in a 27 third for Tucker Kraft. That's about even to me, just because David Njoku was so productive on a points per game base, or excuse me, an opportunity share basis. I mean, he was averaging 8.5 targets a game. But if you believe in Tucker Kraft, you're getting 5 years back plus, 5 years back plus he could take a step forward. We don't know. I mean, that offense in Green Bay is going to be so far superior to what we think Cleveland's going to do.
And then quarterback situation that
exactly.
More
like, we don't know who's going to throw. Yeah.
Njoku could be out of there next year in Cleveland, and maybe Fannin steps right in there and cleans that up. But Njoku's been great. So I'm with you. I view that as semi-even depending on where you're at.
Yeah. And then last one, Tucker Kraft and the 310 for the 303. It's 0.5 tight end premium, start 9. Yeah, give me Tucker Kraft there.
All right. I like it. Little Kraft spotting on the end of this one. All right. I got one more for you to wrap this up. Be short and sweet on it. I'm going Ricky Pearsall here. Obviously, crazy start to his career. And just, took a little minute to get on the field and start ascending. We saw him in October 20th in his first action, was okay for a few games. Had 3 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets in those, 6 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets in those games. Then, banged up a little bit here and there, figuring some things out. Then at the end of the season, you did see a good connection with him and Purdy. You saw him making some plays. You saw him starting to kind of figure it out. And you saw, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 141 yards, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 69 yards, both TDs in both of those games. A big one here for me is that I think him and Purdy are going to have a lot of time together to get, a connection built here, because Ayuk is going to miss a lot of the offseason. There's a real chance that he starts on the PUP and misses at least the first 4 games of the season here. And Debo's gone. So to me, this is a connection that's going to be working hard all offseason. And if Pearsall can stay healthy throughout the offseason, I think this could be a connection that comes out swinging right out of the gate. So, and then whatever you want to do with that then is up to you, right? But I think this could be something that really quickly could be escalating to people being like, all right, what do we do with Ricky Pearsall? Do I cash in or do I cash out?
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw Ricky Pearsall at the end of this, and it's palatable price here for our ADP coming in at 805. To me, that's a spot where I do end up grabbing a decent amount of Ricky, because I get to that point and you're like, who's kind of got the most upside? There's Judy hanging around here. There's Pearsall hanging around here. If Judy had Purdy, I'd say Judy. But I don't know who's got Judy. So I'll take Ricky, right? So
I mean, without question. Yeah, I'm just looking up. I'm on Fantasy Points data, just trying to look up a few things with old Slick Rick. I mean, everybody, I think what's burning everybody's brain is that game against the Lions where he absolutely cut up. And, it showed everything that he put on it. That was part of his profile. He's an elite separator. They were using him on choice routes and, just allowing him to separate from against man coverage. And that's what he does. Yeah. And if he's going to have autonomy to operate in the slot like that could be nasty work with him and Brock Purdy, just giving him an easy button. Like, you got Christian McCaffrey doing something nasty to a linebacker on one side. You got Ricky Pearsall getting open, in the short area against a slot corner, or, just being the easy button. And then you got George Kittle, like, leaving it, like, opening everything up over the middle. I could see how this could work, because we know Brandon Ayuk is a boundary X wide receiver, and he wins that way because he's awesome.
Right.
So figuring out the roles, like, is that going to be, Jawan Jennings was a power slot. Ricky Pearsall could fit into that role. So like just kind of figuring out what that is, but it's easier to picture Ricky Pearsall doing that because he was so dominant against man coverage towards, the back half of the season once he got over, the offseason shooting.
Right. And he battled a few other things kind of throughout there. Then
wasn't it like a shoulder and a shoulder?
I think so. I know that a shoulder's been kind of a thing for him throughout career, but I might have been a lower leg injury.
Okay.
There, but I don't quote me on that. So anyway, we can wrap up on that note. Chev, where can we find everything that old Chev does? Because this is a hardworking man. Now I know he's got a nice cushy home here at the FFD, but he's doing some other things, whether I like it or not.
Stuff and things and stuff. It's all in my link tree. Go follow me on the Twitter Xverse at Chev90. It's all there. You can find it, click on it, leave me a hateful comment, but don't leave bad reviews. Only leave good reviews, but you can leave as many hateful comments as you want and we can laugh about it in the comments. So yeah. And then download the League Champ app, App Store, Google Play. Do that, please.
Get it. If you want more FFD, we got a Patreon. Check that out. It's all this ADP we're talking about, mocks. We got rankings going down over there. There's going to be a bunch more stuff going on over there. If you're listening on the pod or on the tubes, we're doing a up to $100. Damn, lost my train of thought there.
We're doing up to $100 league entry fee match for 5-star reviews. Okay.
Yeah. So throw those in there. It's in the description. Click on it. Enter. You can get your girlfriend's phone, your boyfriend's phone, whatever, and you can do one on Spotify, do one on iTunes. We'll get you up to $100 of your league fees for some 5-star reviews over there on the podcast side of things. So until next time, I'm Casey. That's Chev. We're the FFD. We appreciate you. Peace.